and downloading it all, because you'll see there's a homework and some homework files, but all we need today is the folder called GIS data. I forgot to print it out for you, but in that folder, you'll see a PDF that looks like this. This is your homework. You can email it to you if you'd like, but this is essentially what I want you to do for homework. The DEM files, 3 DEM files are in the folder DEMs. And I showed you last class, but we'll do it again today, to use that clip raster tool, different from the clip shapefile tool that will actually clip to the perimeter of the shapefile. We'll look at that again at the end, but for now, what I'd like to show you today is 2 different things. The merge tool that we used for merging the well data, when we added XY data and created new point data files, at the end of that class, we merged those files together, brought 3 different shape files into one data set in one shape file. We're going to effectively do the same thing today with rasters. It's a little more complicated process with rasters because they're bigger files. And there are 2 different options for how to do it. We're going to run through both of those. What I expect to happen is that it's going to take a while to run. So I'm going to start the class with these, and then I'll have you open a second instance of ArcMap, and we'll let that run in the background while we go on to the GPS toolset. So if you could please open ArcMap. And we will start with Mosaic. So if you'd like to grab the classified rasters, those 4 classified rasters, we'll start with them. Remember, you don't have to drag them in one by one. We have this add data tool. You can go up and grab all 4 at once and add them to your map if you'd like. So when we looked at these before, we played with the color scheme in here and actually changed these colors and sent a color map out and picked up the color map from the other ones. Easiest thing to do, especially if you're looking at, say, the entire state of Montana and you have a whole bunch of these to deal with, easiest thing to do is mosaic them all together. The term mosaic is the raster version of merge. So if you're ever looking for the tool to bring it together, remember mosaic and merge. You can either mosaic, which is what we're going to do with these guys, or you can mosaic to a new raster. The only difference is that one overwrites one of your original files and one does not. It creates a new raster. So we're going to do mosaic first. In our toolbox, I'm going to open and close mosaic a couple of times so I can show you things between the map and the tool itself. But mosaic is under data management tools, raster, raster processing, raster data set. And you'll see right under mosaic is the next one. We're going to use mosaic to a new raster. So I'm going to open the mosaic file or the mosaic tool, and you can either go hunt for your files and drag all 4 of them in, or if they're already in your map, you can use the little drop menu and add them one by one. It's going to bring those 4 files in. Those are the 4 that we want to bring together into one continuous raster. Now, the first thing it's going to ask you is the target raster. This is the one you want to overwrite. Good practice, if you're going to overwrite anything, make a copy of it. So I'm going to close this tool out and go back. Take one of my original classified rasters, any one of them is fine, in Arc Catalog, right click on, just pick one, say copy, and paste that right back into that folder. It's going to say it's copy.tiff. If anything goes wrong with this tool, if it crashes on you, you don't want to have overwritten or partially overwritten your original file. So just good practice to make a copy of it if you're ever going to overwrite your files. So back in Mosaic, I want to add those 4 files. I'm going to leave the copy out of that list so that I'm only using those 4, and I'm going to set my target raster to that copy one so that I'm not using it to overwrite, but I'm overwriting those 4 onto it. If you don't have your help menu open, go ahead and open it, the show help. The next one, the Mosaic operator. It says it's optional, but this is actually a pretty important tool. If you look at what it says about the Mosaic operator, each of these colors is represented by a color, each of these pixels is represented by a color that's numbered. When we use the Mosaic operator, it's asking us, how do you want to overwrite overlapping cells? Now that's really important in this particular map because as we looked at before, these white areas and these green areas overlap each other. And the goal is to get rid of this white cuff. We don't want to see that white cuff on there. We want to see a smooth, continuous map altogether. And the way to do that is to figure out how to write the higher numbers over top of the low number, because the low number is 1. So we want a higher number anywhere that it overlaps. In this case, say anywhere it's black or green or red in that white cuff, we want that to write instead of the 0. So the Mosaic operator is going to allow you to do that. Look at what they say and see if you can figure out which one will be the best option in that case. It's actually on your handout. In this case, the maximum is our best option because the higher the number, the more likely it is to be an actual color instead of 1. It's just, in this case, with these classified rasters, that's the way we want to go. So we're going to set our Mosaic operator to maximum. If you do sum, it's going to add the overlapping values together. Sum would probably work in this case, although the 1 would probably bump the colors up if we landed anything below 12. Blend, and honestly, the first and last is going to just depend on which one it picks up first, so I wouldn't use that one. And the Mosaic color map mode, what it's asking here is, how do you want to design this color map? If we have multiple color maps in here, we don't know how to do it. In this case, we want to match because, well, actually, it doesn't really matter because they're all exactly the same color map. So any one of these would work. But what you typically want to do is match, because match is going to say, of all of the color maps, we're going to use every single color we have. We're going to match them all together. So we want to do match. We can ignore the background value. I'm going to try this and just put 1 in. I haven't run that to see if that'll work, but I did run it this way earlier and it was crashing on me, making 13 blank. I don't know why, but everything else we can leave alone. That's all you need to do to run Mosaic. Say okay. And that's probably going to run for a few minutes. So let's open up a new instance of ArcMap instead of trying to make it do multiple processes at once. And we'll do Mosaic to a new raster. So to Mosaic to a new raster, please bring in the continuous rasters. Oh, it ran. There we go. I am going to uncheck all of my underlying rasters. It got rid of all of the cuffs because I told it in two different ways that I didn't want the white cuffs. I said one is a background value and to ignore it. And number two, I said any number higher than 1 I want overwritten, higher than 0 or 1 I want overwritten by the higher number, which in this case would have been a color. So while I kept this extra data on the outside of my map, I made the inside of my map continuous. And if what I'm interested in here is in Silver Bow County, which is where this happens to be. Let's see if I've got a Silver Bow County in here somewhere. Where that happens to be, I can then use my clip tool to trim that down to just Silver Bow County. Everybody remember the clip tool from last class? Next toolbox down in the raster, just the raster processing clip. I'm going to run that again real quick because it's a quick tool. You want to input that one, input the raster, the one that I just created. That continuous raster is the one I want to put in. Silver Bow County is my output extent. And remember, if I check this box, it's going to clip to the lines of the shapefile instead of to the box around the shapefile. And I'm just going to let it go to my default geodatabase and say, okay, I'm not real interested in this file, but I want to see what happens. So there we go. I've clipped that. I have taken 4 overlapping cuffed files, mosaiced them together, and then clipped them. So I have a continuous topographic map of Silver Bow County. All right, so let's try the.
Where was the clip again?
The clip was in our toolbox under Data Management Tools, Raster, Raster Processing. So remember that one, because that's what you're going to need for your homework when you mosaic with 3 DEMs or mosaic to a new raster to clip it down to Silver Bow County like this. You'll need to run that clip tool. And that little checkbox is easy to forget, but that checkbox makes the difference between getting a square output and an output the shape of your shapefile. All right, this is the one that's likely to be a little bit slower. So add in the 4 continuous rasters, please. Now, while these 3 actually look like they're all blended together because they don't have the cuffs, they are 4 separate files. So if I wanted to run that clip tool, I would have to run that clip tool 4 times to make it actually clip out the Silver Bow County. Let me find it again. There it is. In order to get Silver Bow County, I would have to clip this 4 times to get that, because you can see they overlap. Those corners overlap in Silver Bow County. So instead, I'm going to mosaic this one to a new raster. Now, a continuous raster in this case is a little bit different from the classified raster because this one has 3 bands. I'm going to right click and look at the properties. Under the source tab, it tells you right here that it's got 3 bands. You can see it, band 1, band 2, and band 3 is red, green, and blue. But this is important. The number of bands is important if you're going to run a mosaic to a new raster, because that's one of the things that tool is going to ask you. So pay attention to what your file type is going in. Data Management Tools, Raster, Raster data set, and we want mosaic to a new raster this time. Now, because we're actually writing a brand new raster from all of this, you don't have to copy anything this time. You're going to just create a new raster altogether. So bring those 4 files in. And notice the next question is the output location. It's asking for a location somewhere to put this. So when you go to choose your location, you need to choose a folder. I'm going to put mine in the GIS data on my folder. So I choose that folder and add that folder. Don't go all the way into the folder, select the folder itself, because the next one is what you're going to name it. So I've harped on this with these tools. I keep telling you, stick with the name extension that you go in with. Esri doesn't like to do two things at the same time, but in this list, we don't have SID files. Mr. SID is a proprietary file type, so Esri does not actually write those, but your next best option is an Esri file. So if you don't put an extension on it, it's going to create an Esri grid. It tends to write Esri grids pretty easy from just about anything because that's Esri's file type. So if you don't have the option of keeping the file extension you're going with, default to the Esri file type. I'm just going to call this new raster and leave it blank for the file extension. I don't want to change my spatial reference. But notice, because it's got a green dot here, this is something I have to answer, the number of bands. We looked at that, and it's 3 bands. Each of these 3 have 3 bands. Each of these 4 rasters have 3 bands. And while you don't have to answer these questions at the end, just like the other one, if you don't, it's going to automatically decide how it writes your map, how it merges those pixels together, and what color map it uses. So in this case, I believe your best option is, again, maximum. Actually, I think in this one we're supposed to do mean, because in this case, I don't think there are any overlapping ones, but since we're looking at bands here that may overlap, your best bet is to take those colors and average them instead of trying to pick a maximum or a minimum or do something like that. Chances are, like, this green is 72, and it's overlapping a 68 that's just a lighter shade of green. You want to go somewhere in the middle. You'll never see that. It's going to be such a minor pixel change, you'll never see it. So your best bet is probably mean in this case. And we want to match, again, our color maps, because we might have a higher or lower red and a higher or lower blue in one of these different files. So we want to get the full extent of the color map. And okay, that's all we need to put into this one. This one might run for a little while. So we can come back to that. Just let that run in the background. You did. Oh, okay, yeah, so just put in the number of bands for 3 and it'll should let you run. Okay. It's either not done yet, so it might still be processing the sync. It's not doing that. Yeah, this one is really slow and sometimes doesn't. Well, you might have crashed it. I don't know where the. Oh. I don't know what happened with that, but. Oh, just ignore that. So that was a fragment of a file that came in from somebody else. All right, let's see. I'm going to see the results window, and I don't know where it is.
I didn't see that.
Well, let's say it works.
Oh, should I look in there?
Hey, Gabe. Go up to geoprocessing and results. And under your current session, it should say, looks like it says mine succeeded, but it should tell you at the end that the messages, if it's still executing or if it succeeded. It succeeded. So try, does it still look all goofy over there?
It just there's one open, yeah.
Well, then I think it's probably crashed it by trying to open it before it was ready. It doesn't like that.
Yeah, so the SDK file with that.
No, don't use the SDK file. That was just a fragment file that came in and I couldn't get rid of it. Try running that tool again, because I think what happened was it probably crashed on you while it was trying to run. I'll be right there in one sec.
You're good. And then it came up with the thing, and then
Oh, you gotta give it a folder. So you just have to pick one.
and then it did it again. So,
Give it a slightly different name.
you did have your copy. Yeah, okay. Nice, that worked. And then see on the side. There should be like a new one right back down.
Really fast.
Unclick all of them, but you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but make it hollow. So right click
I can try closing this thing.
on your new one,
Yeah,
whatever one.
I don't see that one. Maybe it did work. Oh.
Or, yeah, follow.
It should not run that fast. That makes me think it's.
Yeah, that's it.
Something.
And then,
Oh.
no, yeah, and then unclick your other one. You did also. Your copy. Okay.
But it's popping up all.
You're getting a bunch of stuff, but it's not sure.
What did we do?
You just did the same exact thing.
I tried it.
That's from when we did the other thing.
Oh, your merge thing?
Yeah.
Or when we moved? Yeah.
Was it?
No. I had the one on the top and the bottom. That was
Yeah.
it. I didn't have that.
It's just moving.
Oh, I went under Raster data set. And that was it. And then I put Mosaic spaces. And then I here. Yes. And then
Like this one can be problematic, so I'd recommend doing Mosaic for your homework.
and then
Well,
It didn't create mine either. I don't know what's going on with it. It's telling me it succeeded, but it didn't actually create the raster, so I don't know what's happening with this.
yeah, I didn't do the same thing. Mine either. Yeah, like,
The only thing I can think that would really be hanging it up, this is an old school thing with Esri, is it didn't like spaces in the names,
but I think that's where it probably is.
and mine definitely had spaces, so that may have been what it is. I don't know why that didn't run. It ran for me just fine upstairs about half an hour ago, so best I can tell you is it might be these bad computers. It might be these low-grade computers, but it could be, and I ran it from the same folder. It shouldn't be hanging up on that.
Can I ask you a quick question? So when we were doing our mosaic for the last one, our first one, did we put the one under ignore background value or no data value?
It was ignore the background value of 1.
Okay, that's what it was. Oh, ignore that. You see, you were right. We were just trying to figure out why his is black in the background. So I'm just reviewing it.
That was your flip though, right? That
Yeah.
wasn't- Oh, okay.
And we tried fixing it. We even redid it, and I did it too.
So
This is my clip.
I
We did the same exact thing.
I can start over.
don't know why I gave you black background.
Probably be easier if you started over.
You might have put something into the, before you run it, take a look at it.
Okay.
Set it all up and look at it.
So we tried every set bit.
She said, yeah, just bring them all in.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with it.
She's gonna come look at it.
I've never had it used before. And I ran it just fine upstairs.
Wait, that's not the same one.
No.
This is
No, you're doing
Oh.
the first one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're
Just have
good.
boss.
No. And mine did the same thing. When I put it running, I said, "Why would this?" So it won't let me put it in the same spot.
I don't even think mine might have worked though.
Wow, well,
Did it?
okay, well, this one's in.
Did yours work with this? Did you get all the shit? And you're not mine, but- Oh, I did. I think mine work. Sorry, you none. But I think it works, because I got to use my ones. Oh, did I bring them over?
Might just be too much for these. Okay, everybody's having trouble with this. My computer is too. I ran this upstairs just exactly the same way, so I know that this is supposed to work. What I think is going on here is this is a really big process for these computers, and I think they can't handle it. I'm not sure that that's what's happening, but it seems like it's happening to everybody, even up here. So I don't really know, but everybody seems to be hitting these 4 groups that aren't working. So we can try running it on the classified rasters. They're much smaller file types.
And I didn't actually just be popping in there when I went and looked for them, like in my files. I went into the right spot. I just showed folders, but then I can actually import the folders. And it tells me I can't draw. And then when I go in and inspect it, it goes file size 0 bytes.
Oh, that's not good. Hey, let me come look at yours. I'm gonna look at Tyler's real quick.
And then do max. And then match. And then first under more.
So you're
Oh wait,
mosaicing.
why'd you put that box?
Yeah, take that and select that one, and then that's the only one we want to leave on.
I've been here.
We don't want to add it in because that's just adding complexity.
See how you clicked that box to convert? I don't think I clicked that box. Oh, no, unclick. I just saw it. Sorry. And then scroll down.
Oh, no, not anymore.
I think those are, just ignore those. We got matches.
And then press OK. And then bring in your silver bow.
One lady
All right.
So also bring in the file that says copy. This is probably wrote already. I don't know where it goes. All right.
Yeah, it's the same error I got.
All right, if you guys want to try Mosaic to a new raster with the classified ones, run it the same way, maximum and match, and see if you can get that to work, because the classified rasters are much smaller files that might actually work. You're gonna hate that, but sometimes it gets stuck in the best thing you can do. Just start over. Shut up and go away.
Lisa, classified ones, a second. Second time classified.
The classified.
She wants us to
Try Mosaic to new raster. Just use 2 of the classifieds. Don't use all 4 of them. Just use 2 of the classified rasters and try running the Mosaic to a new raster. You don't.
I'm running around the others sometimes.
Oh, you're totally fine. I'm flying by the seat of my pants because I don't know what's going on. Why this is working. All right, so let's see. Oh no, we were going to try Mosaic.
Yeah. Oh, I have problems with
Dude, does your art toolbox just keep popping up as like the main thing? Like anytime I go to catalog to like drinks, and it goes to art tools.
Okay. Select it on it.
See, it's there, and then watch. I will, if it doesn't do it right now, it's because you're watching.
Put it in your map.
Yeah, so that's all right there.
Anything is now.
Okay, because I'm so annoyed by that.
Sometimes trying to write it after you've already overwritten it.
We saw it as something about
Something happens, so I actually should do it. Because that just sometimes gets goofy. I don't know why. It says it's the wrong number. So those files are only 1 band. They're not 3 bands. You can, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. You can right click on the, go into the properties menu and under source, it will tell you how many bands there are. But those files are all 1 band instead of 3.
Okay. Was it under Raster?
It's right where you found Mosaic. It's just
What one is it called?
Mosaic Raster.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
And then download the two that came in.
Cross your fingers. Oh, yeah, I did that.
Mine's
That's just because I can't see it with the number for white. I'm trying to get rid of that. We're trying to make sure these cups don't show up. And so. It's not showing. So it's definitely running.
Good for it.
It looks like it worked.
No, I think we're gonna.
What?
Right, makes me think that you just got locked in the other.
Yeah.
Or if you were trying to overwrite a file you had already overwritten, which sometimes
I
happens.
just know when I did the flip.
Well, that's all I want.
So what's wrong with that? Start from that one was working.
So for last we do maximum, no blend, no mean.
I just did maximum because they're different mixed rasters.
And then you did match.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
It should look pretty much the same.
That's the one that says, don't go to the square.
As you do the other way.
it works.
A lot of people get mixed up.
Yeah.
This box instead of that one, that is
Oh,
not
does it?
original.
Yeah, it'll be a new file.
So like where you can refresh by the body.
What I suspect happened was my issue, like the other box, when you stacks, and it filled it in black because it didn't have a background value, my best guess,
It's
but
not where I wanted it.
I don't know, without seeing it repeated, I
I
can't
wanted
remember
it to
what it
go
was.
under.
Yeah, but now I know that's different.
Yeah, if it's getting squirrely on you and giving you a hard time, your best bet is generally to close everything out, start over. Even starting over with a new copy file, because sometimes these computers, especially, if you're on a really fast-paced computer, it doesn't really happen, but especially these computers kind of get into this iterative loop, repeating the same error, even though you're telling it to do something new. I don't know
But I
why.
was having the same
It's
problem.
a processing thing.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Oh, good, it worked. Perfect. Okay, so we got one to work with the classified rasters. That tells me it's definitely the processing power. The continuous rasters are too much for these computers. I'm sorry about that, guys. I didn't realize that was going to be too much for these.
My classified gave me the same problem that we were having with the continuous.
Did it? Let me try and run it up
Like,
here.
it gave me the-
Yours worked? His worked.
Yeah,
Okay.
mine went through, but it gave me the weird triangle with the exclamation point that I was trying to recreate.
File name.
Yeah. New Raster _1.
Okay, because I have to do .tiff. Or else it won't let me print it. So,
Because it came in as a tip. I think that's
My raster, my new raster, it decided to take, instead of all four that I put in, only just basically output one.
No, it should take all four and blend them.
Well, are we doing those?
Yeah, I see. Just Google process
Can
that.
I extract this?
Liam, set it up for me with just 2 rasters that are adjacent to Mosaic, and I'll come look at it and make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you can delete that one. So we just, I mean, yeah, we just want to make sure we do it.
Subscribe my run new raster _1 to .gif. Oops. this one. Max, and this is.
Never mind, I was wrong, it worked.
No, I'm struggling.
Okay,
Okay, so it matched.
Perfect, okay, so it was the dot tip. That, in that case, because it wasn't Mr. Sid,
Yeah,
it wanted to write the same file type.
okay.
It doesn't like changing the file types.
Yeah. Oh, that was a
They're
good
supposed to
catch.
be able to, but it never works quite right.
Hey, thank you.
Okay, good. All right. Did you say it worked?
Never mind, yeah, it worked, it just resumed me, and then I thought that I was only getting.
Oh, okay.
one.
Okay, perfect, good, good. Okay, so you got to see it work. It just doesn't want to do it with the continuous files. So you can use either tool for the DEMs because they're not nearly as complex. But remember, if you do Mosaic to a new raster, on those DEMs, you need to go into the properties and look under the source tab to see how many bands they are. The continuous rasters are 3 bands, but the classified rasters, wherever I put them, if you do the same thing, look at the classified rasters, you'll see the number of bands is 1. And you need to check that on your DEM if you run Mosaic to a new raster. So just be aware of that. When it asks for the number of bands, you need to know that going in. You can, of course, close out and go look, but
Is there a benefit of one versus the other?
generally, speed. Mosaic to a new raster is usually faster. The reason it wasn't in this case is because I gave it such huge file types. Mosaic to a new raster, again, creates a whole new raster. So if you don't want to copy and overwrite your data, really the best benefit at this point is whichever one you can get to work. So I'm just kind of showing you what you have available right now. If you can't get one to work, don't worry about it. Just try the other tool. It looked like Mosaic worked better for everybody, but then I kind of threw you a hand grenade with not getting it to run because it was such a large file type. I did not realize that these computers were going to struggle with that. All right, so let's take a look at the GPS tool set then. The next step, we're going to add the GPS toolbar. I've been sort of slowly but surely adding toolbars to the top of your map. And you'll probably notice we've got toolbars and we've got toolboxes. And really what you can do here is pretty limitless if you know where to find it. So today we're going to add the toolbar GPS. Customize toolbars GPS. And if you want to use that, you can, in the future, you can just go ahead and dock it up there and keep it in your map. Yeah, I would suggest a new blank map. And you don't need to save any of that. You're going to be doing it on your own for homework, so. So we're going to look at GPS as if we were actually in the field with a GPS unit talking to our computer. One of the big things nowadays is you can actually get GPS on your computer and you don't need a separate unit. We don't have that option here, obviously, and I can't bring you all individual GPSs to do this. So we're going to fake it. We're going to simulate working in the field with a GPS unit. So under GPS, go to GPS connection setup. This is where we would actually connect to the GPS. If it was plugged into your computer, you'd look for your COM and detect your GPS unit. Most GPSs, if anybody ever gives you data from a GPS unit, ask them what datum they took their data in. It's almost always WGS 1984. Unless they have actively changed it in the GPS, GPS units are almost always in WGS 84. So when you take that data and you want to work in a smaller area, what do you do with it? We don't want to look at it on a world scale. What do we do with it? To look at it on a more Montana-centric scale, put it in a different coordinate system. What's the word? Yes, thank you, project. Thank you, Rena. So in this case, since we don't have a GPS to connect to, we're going to simulate a connection. Open the folder and look for the sample GPX to features.shp that I gave you in the Teams folder and say add. Now, set your interval to 0.5. This is the interval you want your GPS recording. So if you're walking around out in the field, you want to actually record your tracks. This is how you do it. You set that interval. Now, we're going to do it at 0.5 seconds because I want you to actually watch this, but that's probably a really rapid interval to be your recording out in the field. Say okay. And on your map, you should start to see an arrow. Mine didn't show up. All right. Not yet. It shouldn't. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay. Yep, we do have to open a connection. It usually opens automatically, but I guess this one's going to force it. So if you hit that open connection, you should start seeing a little arrow down here in the bottom of your screen. This is not recording right now. All it's doing is tracking your location on the map. If you want some sort of frame of reference for where you are, we had the continental dissolve file from way back when. Drag that into your map and it shows that we're somewhere up in New Jersey. So zoom in on that arrow. Are you doing okay, Ashley? You can physically zoom in on that arrow, but you'll see we're at such a distance. As you zoom in, it takes a lot of zooming to get in there, and it'll eventually trail off your screen because we are not recording our location, we're just watching it. You have a couple of options here. Under your GPS drop menu, we can auto pan. And that will automatically move the screen with your GPS unit. If you were actually doing this out in the field and you wanted to see where you were, I can put NAPE on here. I don't recommend doing this because I have a feeling it's going to hang us up. These computers are so slow, but I'll put it on there. You can see it tracking on the ground if these computers are fast enough to do that. Yep, this one will work, but. So here we're walking through the woods in New Jersey. Okay, I'm going to stop for now. This little stop connection button with the black square will stop. It just stops the tracking momentarily. But what I want to do is actually save this information somehow so that I'm saving this, and I have a couple of options here. It's not just where I'm going. Maybe I want to track a feature or something as I go. We have a couple of options here, but in order to record our data, we have to take an additional step. Under GPS, go into log setup. In order to actually keep this data, we have to create a log. So let's create a new log. And again, see, you have a sampling rate. You have a sampling distance. If you want to set this to distance, I wouldn't mess with the deflection angle. And you can check this box, log estimated position if signal is lost. If you are working through some heavy tree cover or something, you expect to lose your way. But let's create a new log. This is all the information that the GPS can collect. But generally what you're looking for is just lat long, altitude, time, date, speed, etc., which direction you're heading. You can leave this named GPS log or you can give it a different name, but we want to make sure we're setting up a new shapefile that we can log this information to. So say okay. Do you want to set it as points or lines? We're going to stick with points for now. But say okay. The other thing you can do, if you have a previously existing shapefile you want to add this to, you can open a blank shapefile or an existing shapefile. We just created a new one, but you can open a previous shapefile and add to it. Say okay, we've got our new log created. Now, when I open my connection again, it's still not recording, it's still just running around, but now I have these options here that I can start streaming to my log. Start streaming to your log, and wherever you put that GPS log, bring it into your map. Mine should have been on my desktop. Bring that into your map so you can actually see those points appear as you're logging them. I'll make mine brightly colored so you can actually see them on this map.
Is it supposed to quit after a certain amount of points? Or?
It might, you might have to restart it. I don't know what the default setting is. Now, if you want to add a feature that's specific to somewhere you went, you can use this little flag and plant a location. So you can identify an individual location as something that was important. And I'm going to stop my log and I'm going to stop my streaming. And open my GPS log and look at the attribute table. It's recorded all of this information as I went along. It's got my latitude, my longitude, my altitude. Everything's included in here. So what if it's not including it the way I want to do it? Under my display options, I can actually change, looks like it's recording in meters and kilometers per hour. I can set this to miles or whatever you want, miles per hour. And my personal preference for latitude, longitude format is always decimal degrees. This is the only way I can import data into GIS is in decimal degrees. So anything else to me is useless. I do not want degrees, minutes, seconds. I want decimal degrees. So I tend to put everything in decimal degrees automatically. Although this is already writing to GIS. If I was creating this file and wanted to import it again later from an XYZ format or just take part of this file or share it with somebody, I would want this in decimal degrees. You can convert it, but it's an extra step you don't want to have to do. The other thing you can do is change how you display where you're going. If you don't like that little red arrow. If you lose the signal, you can add that little red circle to show that you lost the signal. We can also add a trail. So right now we're showing our trail as points. Select the line. Notice the symbol is on a color ramp. It starts at black, and as we move away from it, it fades to blue. But we only have 5 trailing points. Bump that up, whatever you want, just bump it up. Say apply. Okay. And start, if you want to start streaming to the log, stream to your log, but turn that back on. Now your trail should be a lot longer and you should have lines between your points. Are you doing okay, Ashley?
I'm just gonna get the GPS log, but everything else I got. So
Okay,
that's
but are you set up? Do you have the log set up now?
No.
Okay.
So I guess I'm not okay.
This one's pretty important if you want to save it. The log is pretty key. So these 2 matches. I'm going to go to.
Oh, okay. I've been thinking of some good features.
Oh, you can look at it. You create a new log.
So I know I'm doing that. I know I'm assuming that's the right thing. Like importing a single.
So we have set of the one spot.
So I did the whole.
Set of minimum samples. Log estimates, like, these are just your options. Because this is a fake pre-recorded GPS signal, none of this really matters.
When you do all this.
if you were actually up.
That all.
So now, when you start running,
Yeah.
so it's not logging that log, you're just following what's doing. You want right to log. That's three inches. Now,
Nowhere.
When you first
Yes, I was looking for that file for so long.
No, I didn't. No.
you put that in your map.
Let me see.
That's probably.
So you hit that button, this is how it starts doing the log.
Yeah.
Now when you open the shape file, you can see.
Don't want to say do it again.
So it's a little slow with my stuff, but those points are still writing in there. Even if it isn't keeping up. Gabe, I think that was your question. If it looks like it stopped writing those points, it's just that it isn't, the display isn't keeping up with it. As soon as it auto pans, you'll see staring there.
Oh, yeah, my snake lost.
So you can stop writing. You can also add,
No,
Yes, that's what we were saying before.
yep, you can add those flags, you can put that information. But this is how you, if you actually want to save this data for something else and not just track where you're going. And this is a great utility. You know, say you're going somewhere, but you don't really care about all the information in between. You're looking at this destination and this destination. You just log while you're looking. You don't log in between. So, and you can log at whatever sampling rate you want, this sort of thing, but this is a way of tracking where you're going. This is just a shape file that somebody created somewhere in New Jersey. I don't really know.
You know, that's the problem.
Well, yeah, I just know that sometimes you can't get like a 50 mile computer, you just can't do this.
Yeah.
With this.
Yeah, it might actually be German data because just looking at photography, they might look like somebody walked.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know, it depends on like whatever they were doing to go through here, they have to make a sample rate. So it looks like it's sampling every second. So I stopped writing to log. The other thing you can do, aside from adding a flag to your destination, is say you got somewhere important while you're running your log. You got somewhere important, you can stamp that destination to your log. Why? You have to be outside of logging. Say I got in my car and I went somewhere else. I wasn't logging along the way, but I found somewhere interesting. I want to stamp this destination to my file. You can stamp your current position and that adds an extra point outside of your just picking locations as you go. This is just following your GPS as you wander around. It's just following where you are and what you're doing. If I went somewhere specific outside of that and I wanted to just keep that one individual location, I would stamp it to my log. If you are doing something that you need to look at this individual point, you can zoom in on them one point at a time. It'll zoom, this looks terrible with that background, but it'll zoom or it'll pan to each individual point. Not very helpful, in my opinion, but it's there. You can zoom back out as long as you are in auto pan, it will follow you. Now, as you're going, if this is too much for you, you can clear your GPS display, under GPS, clear GPS display, and every time you do that, it'll start over with a new tracking. I'm still on auto pan, so it's still jumping from screen to screen with mine.
So how do you get it off the flag? Like I'm trying to click on flag to like get it to not flag anymore. So I'm still at that cross, you know what I mean?
Oh, just, oh, I see what you mean.
Escape and it won't let me, I don't know how to get off that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. I never noticed that, so I don't know.
The arrow, oh, okay, you just said to, okay.
Oh, just to the select elements? Yeah, okay, good call. I don't ever notice that, but that's great. I never noticed that before.
Yours okay?
It was.
Yeah, you're all glitched out.
Oh no, are you having trouble?
Yeah, and his mouse is like the circle.
I'm not following what that means, but
Because I shouldn't be lying.
Oh, I bet you did the same thing I did. You zoomed in on it. Yeah, I think I said to use the zoom to GPS position or pan to GPS position. I just tracked the individual points, so I zoomed way in on them. But you can just zoom back out. Yeah, that's all it was.
All right, so we have tracked all over New Jersey. I am going to stop altogether connecting to my GPS unit. No longer interested in that. But what I am interested in is my GPS log. I created this GPS log and I have all these points. There's two things I want to do with this. I could have created this as a line file, but I'm going to start to make a new log setup. If I set it as a line, it gives me all this additional information about my the start and end of my point. That's not really what I'm interested in. The start and end of my line. What I'm interested in is where I actually am. So in this case, I preferred points. Could have used lines, but maybe I want to later convert this to a line and make it a file, make it a trail. There is a tool called point to line. Points to line, looks like it's in data management. I didn't remember where it was, so, because I haven't used this in forever. This is the tool I want to, it creates lines from points. I'm going to take that GPS log. All I'm going to do is let it run points to line, nothing else. That's the only thing I'm interested in. If you want to make it a loop, you can close the line. But I'm going to run that tool and it's going to create that line for me of the data that I tracked and wrote to my log. Remember, I only tracked part of it. So it didn't give me the entire thing. I only stamped it to my log partially, but everywhere I stamped it to my log, it gave me a trail instead of points. Okay, so if you want to log your data as points in the field, that doesn't mean you no longer have the option of creating that trail. One more thing I want to show you. Your conversion tools under our toolbox. If somebody gives you information from a GPS, you didn't log it, you're not doing it out in the field or whatnot, somebody's just giving you information they created, they're going to give you a .gpx file. That's the way GPS records it. We want to take that data from a GPS that we did not log in the field and turn it into a shapefile. This is a whole lot simpler than doing the field logging. From GPS, conversion tools from GPS. GPX to features, all you do is input that GPX file and give it a name and it'll create a shapefile for you. So now you have two different tools from the GPS toolbox to go out in the field and actually track in real time what you're doing, where you are. And remember, in that GPS log, if there's something that you need to add into this, especially if you're out there in the field and there's something really interesting, you know how to start editing and edit your GPS file. You can add information into this as you go. You can add a whole other column of data. You can add that extra field and write into that. You have all of these tools built up now so that when you're doing something, remember what you've brought together and don't focus on just one thing. You're out there logging in the field, but man, this is a really interesting site. I need to take some notes on it. I want that in my GPS setup. You can do that right there in real time in the field, or you can do it later. So, because we don't actually have GPSs, I'm going to give you, next week, we're going to try this out. We're going to do another in-class assignment that brings together a whole bunch of different tools you've learned so far. But we're actually going to create the golf course that's located right over here. When that was being built, they asked me to build a map for them. So I took a GPS over there and logged the golf course trail. We're going to actually turn that into the golf course map that's displayed. Relatively simple exercise, but it's going to involve editing, creating new files, GPS. Again, going back to displaying tees and baskets using the data that's inside a shapefile, that sort of thing. So it's a little comprehensive. Usually takes 2 class periods, so I'm expecting it to take all of next week, but it will be another homework done in class. So if you come to class, Tyler and I will help walk you through it, but are there any questions on this? This one's pretty straightforward, and all of the tools and what they mean, all of the logging information is actually included on your From GPS toolset. And I believe, yep, I put on the back of it the points to line file that actually tells you where it was located in the toolbox instead of searching it. But if there are no questions, that is all I have for you guys tonight. And I will see you on Monday for in-class assignment work. Oh, and I wanted to say, I'm going to turn off recording on this. This is not for everyone.